I remember having a conversation with somebody in church, talking about, oh, I saw a therapist. And the guy had never stopped seeing me like a madman. I'm not joking.
Oh, wow.
I'm not joking. I'm actually not joking. Hi guys, I'm back on your screen again. I know I've been on sabbatical for a while, and it's super good to be back on your screen again with this brand new podcast. It's something I've been working on with a couple of my friends, and excited to start the shooting. The season 1 is going to span for about 8 months, and I have interesting guests that have been lined up. So this podcast is called Soulful where we're going to be navigating Christianity, culture, lifestyle, having conversations that some church shies away from having this conversation. And I really believe that we can have this conversation as youth, as individuals, and our lives are going to be blessed. Without further ado, I would be bringing on my first guest, a friend I've known for a while, and we are going to be having this conversation together around mental wellness, around how we feel, how sometimes it's okay not to be okay. And I really believe that you're going to be blessed listening to this conversation. If you're listening on the audio version, please subscribe to the channel. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, leave a comment. I would really appreciate it. So without further ado, welcome Sonia Osayande. How are you?
I'm all right.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm fine.
It's really not a bad time to say Happy New Year.
True. Very true. It's still a new year until April.
Really?
And no.
So first quarter
people still do it till October. If I see it for the first time in the year, it's still a new year.
That's good. This is not sponsored by Nigeria, because I'm wondering why you're wearing green or wearing white. It's not proudly sponsored by federal government of Nigeria.
Let's put a bit of pink.
Pink.
So it's green, white, pink.
And yellow.
Or
whatever this color is.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to have you here. How are you doing?
It's good to be here. Very well.
Who is Sonia Osayande?
That is a very interesting question. I think that is something that I am also still trying to refine. Mm-hmm. At the moment, I would say that Sonia Osayande is a sister, a friend, a giver of belly laughs, and a current learner of life.
What does the current learner of life means? I mean, what do you do as a current learner of life?
I think to put that into context, it would mean just someone that is navigating life with a new sense of curiosity, right? Growing up, I had always felt like there was a particular template to life. You know, you had to do this in order to avoid this, do this, do that. But I'm beginning to unlearn all of that to actually learn that, you might have to just learn to take life in strides.
There is no template.
There's really no template. There is no template. You just do the best you can per time and make your peace with that.
I think that is super good, because over time, you get to learn something while you're growing up. Then when you reach like a certain peak in life or a new level in life, you realize that the learning you got from that is no longer applicable in this new phase of your life. And you have to discard that, unlearn that, then relearn, the new things that is applicable for the level in which you find yourself right now.
Very
right?
true.
I think that's super good. One of the questions I like to always ask my friend is, how are you doing?
The general answer to that would be I'm fine. That would be the general answer. But the honest answer would still be I'm fine. If you had asked me how I was, maybe towards like late last year, I probably would have said struggling. I probably would have said I was not fine. But at the moment, I'm actually fine. I'm fine. I don't know how else to explain it. I think
it's fine if you're fine, because yesterday I have a couple of friends I like to reach out to when I don't hear from them. And 2 of them, I know I sent one a WhatsApp message to say, hey, how are you doing? Blink if you're fine, right? Then I sent another one a message to say, hey, hope you're good. It's been a long time I've heard from you. Are you okay? And the 2 responses I got were great, right? Because one said, I'm going to blink when I'm fine. And the other person said, I'm not okay. And I think it's such a genuine response to give when you admit to the fact that you're actually not okay, because then you want to pick yourself up. You understand the level at which you are in, and the step to being okay is understanding that you are actually not okay. So for the person who says, oh, I'm going to reach out to you, I'm going to blink twice when I'm okay, I totally understand that they're in a place whereby they just want to walk things through and they just need their friends to be there for them. And this is a kind of very difficult conversation to have as Christians, because we always expect ourselves to be okay. We want to believe everything away. We want to believe that, oh, you are not walking in faith or you are not okay. And this is absolutely not the case. So how do you navigate that entire process when you don't feel okay and you know you are actually not okay, but you don't want to form, you don't want to wing it? What exactly do you do while in December when you're struggling? What was it like for you?
That's a very packed question. So I think that the biggest disservice that we can do to each other is actually lie to ourselves. It's okay to lie to the world. Not exactly lie to the world. There's this thing they say that you fake it till you make it. Show up the way you want to be perceived. But the best thing you can do to yourself is to be truthful to yourself. And the thing about why I love the person that said they would blink when they're okay is you need to come to a space of acceptance. I think one of the biggest disservice that we do as people is we lie to ourselves. We feel like we always have to, we don't see the strength in vulnerability. We don't see the strength in accepting the fact that even the pulse, the sign of life, up, down, up, down, up. Once it balances out and it's a straight line, then we're in trouble.
That's it.
Because
That's
the
it.
end of the cinema. That's it. So for me, what I would say is you need to be able to tell yourself the truth, because when you accept that you are not fine, when you accept where you are, I think what I wished I had learned earlier is that not being okay is not a weakness. There is strength in knowing that you're not okay and then doing what you can to remove yourself from that place. This amount of energy that we dissipate, that most people tend to spend in trying to deceive themselves, or not, that's what deceive, convince themselves that they are fine. You will not find that you are leaking in different, it starts to show in different places, because of the fact that you're actually not fine. And the shortest journey to being fine is actually accepting that and then saying, okay, where do we go from here? So that was what I did for me, towards the end of last year. So I just sat myself down, you know what, baby, I'm actually not fine. So what is the problem? Having an honest conversation with yourself and then charting a course to saying, okay, I accept that this is where I am, and these are the things that I intend to commit to doing to get me to where I'm going to.
That's so profound. And what exactly were the things that you did? Because you said a whole lot around, first and foremost, understanding that you're not fine. That acceptance is key if you ever want to leave that level in which you're in, to the next level. So it's important for you to understand that you're not fine. And for you, you're able to put key structures in place. And what exactly did you do? What were the structures you put in place? Because I've seen a lot of people that are not okay, in the process of faking it, they stop talking to everybody because they feel like, I want to be left alone. I want to sort this out myself. And that can be a strategy that would work. But I don't think it's a strategy that does work all the time. Because the essence of community is that you are able to have people you can always lean on when you are weak, right? Everybody can't be weak at the same time. Then you're in trouble. But you need friends that are strong to be able to pull you up when you're down, right? How do you get to communicate your feelings to people that matter? And when I mean people that matter, I think it's very important that people understand that you don't go about communicating your feelings to everyone. One of the things I have done in the past was somebody asking me a question during a tough time. After speaking to them, that was it. Nobody came back to see, how are you doing? Hope you're good. Oh, you were feeling like this a couple of days ago. How do you feel now? It was let me just hear the gist and move on, right? And people feel very betrayed after having that kind of conversation with you, because they feel like, why have I given you so much information? At that point, I don't expect you to be able to provide a solution. But is that the end? Right? All you want to hear is the gist. Now you don't hear how. We'll move on, right? So I know people can also be very protective of themselves by making sure that they are communicating to the right set of people that actually care, people that would want to check back on you, pray for you, kind of strengthen you in the
Hold
place
your
of prayer,
hands.
hold your hands. So what exactly were the things you put in place at that point when you were weak, when you were down?
Okay. I'm no longer in a bad place per se, but I would not say that I'm currently in the best place.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I am currently doing, I think it was this TikTok. I don't know, for the youngins that are very active on TikToks. I just say TikToks. Hey, God, I beg. On TikTok, right? And it was kind of like the 3 things that 2023 taught me. I think the very first thing that I wrote there was understand the role you play in your own suffering. I think that is
That's tweetable. Very tweetable.
It is one of the key things that I learned last year. Like, it's easy to look outside and say, this is happening because this is not happening. This is happening because it's not happening. But when you're able to sit down and ask yourself, okay, how am I doing myself? Like, what role or what responsibility am I holding inside this suffering that I'm currently? Once you are able to adequately be honest, answer that question. I think there's also this quote that really helped me out, and it's helped me in everything, even work. And it's called 5 whys. 5 whys, 5 hows. So I am not feeling happy. Why? When you answer that, your answer to that, let me give like case in point, one of the things that I did. So let's say I don't like my weight at the moment. I want to lose weight, but I can't stop eating. My next question will be, why don't you like your weight? I don't like my weight because I feel like, I can look better. I would fit like some clothes, as a baby girl. And the next question will be, why do you want to come across as a baby girl? I will look good in pictures. I would like to pass and notice that people are looking at me. Why do you want to pass and let people look at you? You are yearning for external validation. Then at that point, you realize that, okay, am I really doing this because of people, or am I really doing this because of me? So once you're able to understand that, okay, this is the core why of why this is happening, then it is easier for you to now move to what would I do about it, which is where the hows come into. So what should I do about it? I want to cut down my meals. How can I cut down my meals? I'll stop eating at 7 o'clock. How I would...
That's tough.
It's tough. Or if cutting it is difficult, the next how would be, even if I'm going to eat, I'm going to stop eating oily food or carbohydrates past 7 o'clock. So I'm going to now stock my house with fruit, strawberries, apples, grapes. So even if I want to eat, I'm going to eat that.
You're eating
healthier. It's you are full, but at least you're not adding as much calories.
Yeah.
That's how, that was literally it for me. So the first thing, what role do you play in your suffering? Why is this thing happening, and how would you, run out of it, was the first thing.
Sorry, I think before you move to the next one, you said something that is so profound around external validation. And I think the reason why a lot of people are not happy in this generation is because of external validation, right? I think people are always doing things for people, not for themselves. I find out that a lot of things that we do, if we ask ourselves why we're doing it, you would realize that the role you play in that is actually very little, right? So it could be you wanting to buy a new car at your inconvenience because your friend just bought a new car, so you really want to feel among.
Sometimes it's not even friends. You want to show up at a place and they know that, yes,
hey, I don't arrive.
Someone has
you want to, and you're beginning to deplete what you have in your finances just because you want to validate people, right? And one of the things I've also learned is people don't really care like that, right? People don't really care like that. People look at you once, and they probably are not looking at you again after that's done, right? So you spent about a number of million in getting a new car, and people say, oh, that's a nice whip. And again, they move on with their life because people also have issues that they are trying to solve, and people are doing it for themselves, and they are not looking at what exactly you're doing. So I think that is super profound. We will need to reduce the amount of things that we do for external validation, and we need to focus on ourselves. But we're in a social media generation, so that can be difficult, right? So I think that's really a great point for people to look out for. Yeah, your second point would be?
Thank you for that. I wanted to say something. There was this, I don't know if it was a tweet or it was a quote where they said, nothing is too small until you compare it. Like, everything is just is. It is when you now put it side by side with something else, you now say this one is less than or this one is bigger than. And people need to remember that. Like, especially when you're in a place where you sleep, wine and dine with your struggles. Now imagine, like, you are blind to anything else. You are only concerned about how you want to either meet that quota at work or buy that thing or finish that project. That is literally how everybody is. Like, we are all very, we're all very concerned with our individual paths and walks. When you remember, like, when you're much more reminded of that, it's maybe takes off a little bit of pressure of, wanting to satisfy people or do things because of other people. Now to my second point. My second point is the fact that you really cannot do life alone. Which is hinging on what you said earlier. Community. I said find a few good people and choose to do life with them. I think one of the biggest blessings that I have personally is my friends. I have really amazing friends. They are high flyers. They are always keeping me on my toes. Very annoying bunch set of people. Yourself inclusive. No, but really, and it helps because there's this thing called, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the phrase of it is, but like there's this level of blindness we get. I think it's self-absorption. It's like, I think it's recency, what's the name? The bias, where you keep saying something, and that is all you see. Like you're blind to
every other thing.
It's like is what make consultants make all the money that they make, because you have been in this thing for so long that you don't see anything else. Sometimes it takes somebody from outside to touch to look at it, pressure points or point you in directions to go and what have you, right? And that is one of the things I wish I learned earlier in life. The sense of actually investing and building a community. Like, a lot of people have what I like to call friends that they picked along the way. Friends that they met in school, friends that they were neighbors with, people that they grew up with. But for you to actually build it takes a certain level of investment. It takes a certain level of care. It takes a certain level of refinement. It will take a certain level of self-awareness. You need to be able to know yourself, to be able to pick a community where you can thrive in. And the idea of that is pick a few good people, very few good people that can always pick you up and point you like in the right direction. Yeah. So for a very long time, I'm a person of habits. Like once I am used to something, I'm not looking to change it. Yeah. I just want to. This formula works. I'm sticking with it.
Why break it when it works?
Just leave me alone. And then I have friends that will tell me, guy, you can be doing more.
Explore new things.
Why are you doing this? Like reminders and all of those things. It helps you to attain higher levels, and it also helps you the freedom of knowing that you are not being judged. Like, I think every single person needs a couple of relationships where you know that you're loved for who you are, not really what you bring to the table. Growing up, right, a lot of us, we had like this sense of the fact that we grew up, our friends, like the friendship circle that we have growing up is usually things that we picked along the way. Like friends from secondary school, friends from uni, friends that were your neighbors, people that you probably worked with. And that is slightly different from community. Community takes a certain level of intentionality. Community takes a certain level of investment. Community takes a certain level of self-awareness. For you to be able to, thrive in a community, you have to have some form of common interest, common goal, common direction, right? These other friends that you pick up along the lines are just people that you for lack of a better word, pick up. The only thing that was probably joining you guys together was the fact that you were in school, or the fact that you stayed in the same area, or the fact that you worked at the same place. But it takes a certain level of self-awareness to be able to deliberately pick your community. So when people say that they are scared of friendships, my mother growing up would say that people are wicked, or don't do this, don't do that. while that might be true to an extent, it doesn't really stand true in a community. Because in a community, it's almost like even faith-based church, you have a common, there's a certain underlying factor that puts you guys together, and everyone, that's it. And everyone is invested, in each other. We're trying to, ensure that we refine each other, we help each other grow. And it's one of the fastest ways, to attain, because you're learning from this person's mistakes. You're learning from the things that this person did right. You're learning from this. And also you have extra pair of caring eyes. The fact that there's some things that you don't see, but they can, like your friends, these few good people can see and also help you, either when you're struggling or even when you're trying to launch something, or even when you're trying to punch a new weight grade and all of that. You definitely need community. That was one thing that I really wish that I learned, earlier. And my third point will now come to understanding the difference between contentment and complacency. So, this one was probably my hardest lesson to learn, right? There's contentment and then there's complacency. And the difference between both of them is a very thin line. Very thin line. Yeah. Very, very thin line. We're talking about the fact that, being okay and not being okay and all of that, right? It is, you need to understand when you're being grateful, when you're being contented, and when you're being complacent. And that is where also the point of community comes in. Like, to you might feel like, I'm not trying to please anybody. I'm just, in my own lane. I'm contented with what I have. But is it really contentment or complacency? Are you just being complacent? You need to be constantly aware of those three things. Those are the three things that helped me when I was struggling. I was able to, answer those questions for myself honestly, like being completely honest with myself. Am I being contented, or am I just being complacent? Who are my few good people? And what role am I playing in my own suffering? Once I was able to answer all of that, it was easier, for me to chart a course to where I am at the moment. I'm on a journey. There's still a lot of things that I want to do. Yeah. But then the things that I want to do are a little bit clearer. I'm not trying to hit targets because of someone, or do this because of this or because of that. My goals are very bite-sized, like small. If I tell you what my goal for this entire quarter is, it's the funniest thing. And it's very simple. It's just, you are going to honor your commitment and honor your feelings. Awesome. That is all I'm doing from January till March. I just want to hack showing up. Yeah. Even if I'm not feeling like it, I've already, so how do I do it? Back to my 7 whys. Yeah. Why am I committing to this thing? So once I know that I'm committed to this thing because it's actually something that I want to do, something that's going to move me closer to something, I've committed to it, I have to show up, whether or not I feel like it.
I think it's such a great lesson. I think it's really such a great lesson. Thinking about it right now, one of the things you said really piggybacks to, I can't remember who was telling me this. Comparison is really not the thief of joy, it's envy. Right? So there's nothing wrong in you trying to compare yourself with the other person, right? But once you begin to get envious of other people, then there is a problem. There is a problem of you asking, why them? Why not me? You see somebody drive a great car, or just get married, or just move into a new apartment, or just get this job at this international company. You can say, oh, I would like to get that job also. I would like to work where they're working. I would like to drive that kind of car. And there's nothing wrong in you having that sense of feeling, right? Once you now begin to get envious, to say, maybe the guy they even do Yahoo today, that's the problem. That's a place you don't really want to be, right? So we need to be very careful. And I like the part around community. I'm also a very community focused person, because I tell people that I'm learning to actually differentiate friends, acquaintance, colleagues, and try to put people in their bucket. So previously I would have introduced everybody as my friend. And it's having a backlash to say, hi, meet Sonia, my friend. I meet X, my acquaintance. Because the word friend is actually very big. Heavy. It's actually very heavy. And I'm very careful of the people I label friends, right? There must be a level of reciprocity between us I must know that you can go to war with me. If you don't tick that box, Charlie, you're not my friend. It's really clear, right? Because there are a lot of people I can go to war with. For anybody who is very close to me, I can go to war for you. If I can go to war for you, and there is battle, and I'm calling on you to see, I get crew, I get men. they plenty like the clients. Are you not sure? Like that's it. That's the way I say like, oh, I mean, this is the way. And it's okay sometimes if people cannot show up for you, but when people don't even show up for you, you can see the level of their commitment they put to the pre-event or to the post-event, because people also have their lives to be able to figure out, right? So you said a whole lot, and I think it's super great, right? And just back to the conversation around not being okay. One of the things I have done in the past is see a therapist. I think I've seen a therapist twice. 2022, why are you laughing? 2022 and 2023, right? And I remember having a conversation with somebody in church, talking about, oh, I saw a therapist. And the guy has never stopped seeing me like a madman. I'm not joking.
Oh, wow.
I'm not joking. I'm actually not joking. He has, when he sees me, it's like, oh, I hope you are fine now. Like, Charlie.
I think it's an awareness thing.
So, what and therapy is not cheap. Therapy is quite expensive, right?
It's definitely.
It's quite expensive. And one of the, I find it so, I think it's bad because sometimes when you have conversations with unbelievers, can be sometimes better than having a conversation with a believer, because they expect you to have faith. They expect you to believe it the way. It's like when somebody has diabetes, you don't tell them to stop using their insulin. What makes you think when I'm going through a rough time, I have to just assume it's not there and just move on, right? So what's your idea around therapy? Have you used the therapy?
Oh, I have. That's why I was struggling.
Oh, nice.
When you said talking about therapy, I was struggling because I've been therapized. I promise you. I ran away because it became quite expensive. I want to finish your question. What's my thought around therapy?
Yeah, what's your thought around it? Yeah, of Christians seeking therapy.
It's funny in the sense that you said there's someone that's like, I think the person is just uninformed, right? Life is, I think, one of the most interesting things that struck me earlier on in the year is the word abracadabra, which says, I say and it is. That's literally the meaning of abracadabra. Like, I say and it is. And it takes me back to creation, because like, let there be. Like, there's so much power in words and conversations. Like, everything starts and ends with conversations. And what therapy gives you, it gives you the gift of introspection, it gives you the gift of conversation, and then it gives you the gift of navigation. And these three things, sometimes, some people are lucky. They have friends that can help them. I have some friends I call my unpaid therapists. Like, all they do is listen and ask me questions, and it makes me feel better. And that's what a therapist does most times. Like, there was a time when I was upset at the amount I was paying in therapy, because what this guy was doing was just asking me questions, and I would talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And then when I'm done talking, he would ask him another question and say, do you think, don't you think that this, could this be because of this? And then I will argue, and then I'll come back, and then I'll come to realize. It's almost like the person is just there to help you to self-realize. That's it. And then because they've spoken to more people and they have like a wider grasp on things and a wide range of know-how, it's easier to help you navigate your feelings. You realize that we might have fancy gadgets, we might have fancier clothes, but our problems, especially our psychological problems, is since time immemorial. Like, some things are not just going to change. At the bottom of it is there's a particular principle that they've heard about or something. And that's what therapy helps you with. Like, if you can afford it, it's nice. And your therapist is also bound by law. to not share what you're conversing. If you have the widest thoughts, say it to your therapist.
Yeah.
Then the therapist is going to be dealing with it.
Exactly, because I think one of the good parts is they are legally bound not to have your conversation. Tell like, guy, I can tell you anything in this world because I know that it's just going to be between me and you.
If you go out and say it, you are going to jail.
I remember my last therapist was in Nigeria and she's from Namibia. So I'm like, you know what? The chances of me and you ever seeing again after we are done for this 6 months is so slim that I can tell you anything and let's discard it.
Your therapist was an in-person therapy?
We had a couple of in-person, which is once. She was in Nigeria once, right? So I think she had like this she had like clients in Nigeria she comes to see. So she came to Abuja and like we had a conversation.
Mine is teletherapy.
That's why it's very expensive.
Every single
that's why it's very expensive. Like I don't put money there. It was quite expensive, yeah. So we had like once a week virtual, right? Then I was able to like see her once. But I know it's that one time. I'm probably never going to see you again. Right? And if I ever need to talk to another therapist, I'll just get somebody else, right? I'll just get somebody else. So that's one good thing about therapy. You don't ever have to hear it from other people to say, or you work in church or you work around and your people are beginning to say, do you hear that Dam Lola is? It is so amazing that even with the community that you have, like your closest friends, there's always that fear of judgment. Mm-hmm. Like you don't... No matter how much of a hard guy we like to think that we are, deep at our core, we also still crave acceptance. You crave to be, you don't want to be the difference, the one that their case is different. Mm-hmm. Even though they say it in some churches, my case is different, but it is always in the positive sense, not in the negative sense. Therapy allows you freedom. Like, this person is not going to judge me. This person is, even if they do, they are obligated by their job to not portray or let their feelings or their face betray them. They look like, they're listening, no matter how absurd. And that's what therapy helps you to do. It helps with clarity. You get to understand why this is this. Like there was something that the very first thing that pushed me to therapy was I was struggling with work. Like it just felt like life was just going topsy-turvy. And I was taking what's the word now? I was moving like the entire weight of the world was on my shoulder. And by the time you realize the reason why you are this way is because of something that happened to you 12 years ago. And when you understand what the reason is, you become kinder to yourself. Like you start to identify, okay, am I doing this thing again? You have a certain level of consciousness. It's just like if you're walking into a dark room and you kick your leg on a stool. Somewhere at the back of your mind, you know that, okay, you started having a map. I'm not go walk, kick my leg here. Mm-hmm. It's even like children. So they say, leave the fire, but once the fire burns the child once, it will not go to it again. It's kind of like that's what therapy helps you to do. It helps you to understand what your wounds are, what are the things that you are vulnerable to, why are you vulnerable to them, and then how can you identify when you are falling into old patterns. Once you have that awareness, it is easier to make some decisions and navigate through life. Yeah, that's so great. I think trauma is such a thing, right? And we should not overlook it. Some of us are acting on what happened to us 20 years ago. Subconsciously, consciously, we are making decisions based on how we were treated 7 years ago, 8 years ago. There are certain places we don't ever want to be. There are certain words we don't ever want to hear. There are certain actions that when people take them, we kind of fight them with the sword of the first offender, right? So you don't see them as, oh, this is Sonia. You see them as maybe a name Mary to say, this is Mary I'm trying again. I'm seeing Mary and Sonia, right? And it's never supposed to be so. So it's such a thing. And as Christians, I really think it's important for us to not just say, you can pray it away, but you need to heal it away also, right? You need to sit down and understand, this is the genesis of my problem. This is why I am doing these things. This is why I am taking these certain actions. And it's kind of hurting people around me, right? Because I'm probably not forgiving my past, or I see a reflection of my past in somebody, right? Even though they don't mean as bad as probably don't even mean bad, right? They are just there because they don't understand exactly what you've gone through. Then you pick out the sword of the first offender and you want to like fight them with it. And I think it's such a thing that really needs to be discussed, right? So my next question would be, how do we build a culture of understanding that you are imperfect, so it is okay not to be okay? So in community, in churches, how do we build this culture?
At this point, I think that especially with in churches and also communities, is understanding that we are perfect in our imperfections, and we need to be able to move in that understanding. I know someone that once said that I can never be depressed because I'm a child. I have the mind of Christ. And I laughed because really, what is depression? Well, I know carelessly people have started to replace the word depression with sadness, right? We need more awareness. People need to be kinder to people. Also understanding what trauma is and the fact that each person's story or each person's journey is different. If we are able to teach that fundamentally, then it becomes easier. So you find that there are a lot of core Christians that want to view life only through the lens of scriptures. And while that is not entirely wrong, we are spiritual beings living in physical bodies who are embodied with existing in this physical realm.
Yeah.
There are some rules that govern this realm. It's okay to have faith. It's okay to believe in certain things, but it is also okay to understand that as a people, we all have different journeys. Like, you find that most times, right, in churches, when the word is coming from the pulpit, a lot of pastors, at least increasingly now, you find that a lot of them are now being more conscious of the fact that I have a congregation. People are at different levels of faith. People are at different levels of their walk with God. So it is okay for people to be able to come to understanding of certain things for themselves. So because you have this certain level of belief that you operate in, does not mean that because I don't operate in that, I am less than. Does not mean that because I am not there yet, or it doesn't work for me that way, I am any less a Christian than you.
Yeah.
And that is something that we need to be able to teach at its core, even in churches. I have never been to a marriage counseling session, but I want to believe that most of the things that they teach has to align with current day realities. You have to apply it with where we actually currently exist. So when growing up, I grew up in a very family-oriented church. The sermons were designed to speak to my father, to speak to my mother. My grandmother could relate. But it was not working for me. And it's the same Bible. The principles are the same. So the idea is we need at our core to understand that people have different journeys and they are allowed to navigate life as best as they can at the level that they are in. So we need to be able to get people to embrace the concept of therapy. We need to be able to embrace the concept of trying to find help, whatever way that you think would help you to eventually get to the point where you can then decide that you want to completely rely on the spiritual. So more pastors should encourage therapy and therapizing people and what have you. So churches need to be more, that's just it, underlying empathy and understanding that we all have different journeys. So let's talk to people, in that direction, in that regard.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think that's like one of the essence of having like this podcast. We really want to have conversations that they would naturally not want to have in church, right? And these things happens to everybody. A lot of people in church. I won't say everybody, but I want to say like a lot of people. And the number is actually
really high.
Really high. I don't want to put a percentage to it because I don't have like a data.
I have a theory. When you go to church, the people that you see on the pulpit, they are the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah.
and they are the ones talking to you. And most times you don't see yourself in them. Like when I go to church, for example, our church, and I see one of the workers talking, or maybe Pastor Mike or any other person, I probably aspire to be like them, but I'm not like you. Like I'm still going to go home and struggle with my alcohol. How I know that it is okay for me to be where I am, but I should continue to try to get to the people that I actually see on the pulpit or on TV or every other day. Then it's easier, for me to continue to show up.
I absolutely agree. And I think we are quite lucky to attend a church,
Yes.
like Celebration Church, because you would see like a lot of that. And Pastor emphasized on all of these things to say there is a level of growth. Just make sure that if you're crawling, you are preparing to start walking. And when you start walking, you are preparing to start running, right? You don't ever want to be in a place, right? Even in your struggle, make gradual, incremental, effort. Yeah, to make sure that you want to become like a better person. So don't just soak in it. Don't just want to die in it. Make sure that you're doing you are making progress, right? So if it is even 15-minute prayer you want to do consistently, just make sure it's consistent, right?
Consistency.
Yeah, it gets to a point where you feel like, I want to do 30 minutes now, right? But in that 15 minutes, just make sure it's heartfelt 15 minutes. You're committed to doing it. And there's going to be like another process, because that's the work of the Holy Spirit, helping you to become better and better, right? So my next question will be around support system. How you expect your friends to act when you are going through tough time, because I think a lot of friends don't know how to act, or a lot of people don't exactly know what to do. I'll give you a very great scenario that happens to me. I mean, you know me for a while, so I am a fixer. Every problem is a nail, I am the hammer. We just want to, let's solve it, right? So when you come to me, when you talk to me, I am immediately thinking of, how do I get you out of this thing, right? And I really want to solve the problem. And I don't know whether it's a firstborn thing or it's a responsible thing of you wanting to solve it. Then myself and my other friend, we used to fight a lot, because whenever she talks to me, she just wants me to listen. Like, who tell you to provide solution? Like, who is asking you for solution right now? Just listen and empathize with me, right? I did not know this is such a thing. Right? Until anytime I say thank you for teaching me that, because people just want you to listen to them. People just want you to I'm in the mud, come and sit down with me.
Yeah.
When I'm done, I will stand up. Then I was like, okay, I'm done now. I'm out of this phase. But I don't want you to take me out of this mud. Right now, I just want to sit down in the mud, and I want you to join me. Empathize with me. See things from my lens and not from your lens of, Mr. Fix It, right? Don't be Mr. Fix It at this point. I really want you to sit down. I really want you to hear me. I really want you to feel it from the depth of my heart of how pained I am, right? And it's such a difficult thing to do for someone like me. I had to learn it the hard way. That even now, when they talk to me, I'm like, Damola, shut up. I say, shut up, don't say anything. Because ideas are always saying, I think we should do this. Yeah, guy who is asking you questions, right? So I think anybody who is listening right now, this is one of the things that you should take out of this. People sometimes just want to talk, they don't want you to contribute, right? They don't want you to solve the problem for them, because a lot of the time, people know exactly what to do to get out of the problem. It's just that at that point, they don't have the energy. And the energy they need might be you just sitting down with them, right? That might be all they need. So what are the other things you expect from friends and families to do, when you are going through tough time? What would you expect from a friend, somebody who call a friend?
That's a very interesting question. So I am what I like to call a coiler. So anytime I'm actually struggling at my core, what I want to do is just retreat. I want to disappear. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be heard. I just want to be by myself and sit down in whatever emotions that I'm feeling till I figure it out, right? And that's one of the things that I'm trying to unlearn, trying to help my friends, be there for me. Mm-hmm. And my friends, I have a very amazing group of friends where no matter what it is that I want to do, I know who to talk to. Mm-hmm. Even though I know it is the most absurd thing, this thing doesn't make sense. I know who to talk to that will support me and say, let's go and do it. So I think that as individuals, when we're struggling, we need to be able to understand what it is that we want per time. So I'm not going to come and meet you, for example. I'm not going to come and meet you. So it depends on what it is that you want. I also have another friend that would ask you, anytime I'm ranting to her, she'll ask me, it's always jokingly, so who do we beat up? Who do we kidnap? Or should we talk around how we should, fix this thing? So if I'll now be done to say, okay, this is who I'm beating up. This is what I want at this time. So sometimes it also helps for you to have friends that can ask you what it is that you want at this time, even if you don't know what you want. Okay, so at the end of the day, right, you have to understand or know your friends for who they are. It's going to be unfair, for example, for me to say, I already know that you're a fixer. I'm not going to come and meet you when I know that all I want to do is rant. Right? Except, of course, when you're my partner, then you have no choice. You have to wear different buckets and different hats. But also as individuals, we need to understand like our friendship circle, what to meet for what.
Exactly.
And also be a little bit not clear, but have an inkling of what it is that we want at that particular time, right? So for me, the best way that a friend can show up for me would probably be messages and food. That's the best thing you can do.
You like food?
I like food. And for someone that likes food, I hate to cook. Like my kitchen is the deadest place in my house. Anyways, so the idea is, anytime I'm struggling, my first inkling and my first instinct is to retreat. I want to.
You also don't sleep?
I don't sleep. So that's the thing. It keeps me up. So I'm by myself. And then the next thing is Twitter.
I know. Because I see your tweets like 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
Twitter
like, why the hell is she rambling by 3 a.m.? Like, nobody's on Twitter by 3 a.m.
But the thing is, it's so interesting that I have two friends that actually pay attention to my tweets. Like, that is how I say, like, the essence of community, right? They actually pay attention to my tweets. They don't not message me, or they'll not say, once they just see the trajectory of how my tweet is going. So, like, my Twitter is almost like
that's where you document your feelings.
Something like that. That is actually in the public shareable version of my feelings.
Yeah.
So if you read my tweets, you can guess and gauge where I am at. I try to hide it, but you can still gauge it. So that's the same thing with like every other person. You need to, in a community, right? You start to recognize patterns, and it helps you to be there for your friends.
I mean, that's so good. So I don't know the Twitter thing is such a thing, because I know people like just drop their feelings on Twitter. So I also have like this friend that I know how she's feeling by the kind of tweets she likes or the things she retweets. Like, I automatically have an idea of her headspace just by the kind of tweets she likes and the kind of things she retweets. So we don't talk like a lot of the time, even though we are close. So sometimes if I want to like check up on her, I send her a message and I'm not getting like a response, I go to her Twitter and look at the things she has liked. And you will see that they are very consistent. Like, they are mostly talking about the same thing. The things she's retweeting is very similar to the things she likes. So I know that at this place, like this person, this is exactly how they are feeling, right? So I know exactly either to leave them or to like reach out to them, like just drop a voice note, right? To say, hey, I hope you're good. How are you feeling? This, that, and just move on, right? And that's the way like I tend to show care for that person. Now, she was like, how do you exactly know how I used to feel? I'm like, if I tell you the hack now, you'll be feeling very proud. But it's so simple, because it's the things you like on Twitter. Like, oh, really? That's so true. I'm like, Charlie, that's the way you feel, right? So people like kind of document their emotions by the things they post, the things they write about, the kind of song they listen to, the kind of podcast they really want to listen to at that time, even the kind of places they go to. You see that it's so much in line with their emotion, right? So rounding this up, what would be your advice for anybody who is going through a tough period, understanding that it's actually okay not to be okay, and they're not entirely in a bad space. They're just in a place whereby they need to understand, just based on the structure and the formula you've gained, right? Ask yourself like a lot of why. Why am I feeling this way? Then when you have an answer to that question, you ask the further why, right? Just like the 7 why or the 5 whys, like you call it. Yeah. So having to understand how that structure works. How would you encourage somebody, or what would be your word of encouragement to somebody who is going through a tough time right now, and you don't like where you are. You can just be sincere with yourself. But what's your advice for them? What do you want them to do?
It's always still comes down to this sincerity. You need to be sincere with yourself. I think that we always like to lean into strength, but there's actually strength in admitting your own weakness or your own vulnerability.
Yeah.
It is okay that it might not be where you're at and it might not be the best, but it's okay. It's not life is very times and seasons, right? Like
Yeah.
you're on sign of times and seasons, like the men of Isaka. But like it's never going to be smooth sailing all the time.
Yeah.
You need to be able to accept this is where I am at. Once you accept that, it is easier to crawl out. I think the reason why people tend to spend more time in their rot or in their not feeling okay is because of the fact that they are doing more, trying to convince themselves that they are fine, as opposed to accepting that they are not fine and then doing the best that they can to actually get out of it. Okay, so to sum it up, basically, to the fact of like being okay with not being okay comes with acceptance. You need to first accept that you're not at your best. You're not 100 or even 90%. Once you're on like 60, 50, you need to retreat and ask yourself why. You know, understand that you're actually not okay. Why am I not okay? Why am I feeling this way? Then it is easier to chart a path to, coming out of it. And the example you made about your friend that you notice like what the person likes and what the person retweets, that is what you get in a community or from people that are like your own people and not just your work friend.
Your random friends.
Do you understand? Because it takes a certain level of intentionality for someone to actually be able to notice a pattern because you need to care to be able to see those kind of things. Because life stuff. So yeah, you need to have that. You need to be able to accept that you're not okay. Have a few good people around you. You're not always not going to be okay. So even on days when you are okay, also be intentional about helping the people around you that you sense are not okay. It is easier for you to get help when you are somebody that would ordinarily help their friends as well. So there are like 4 things to do when you realize that you're not feeling 100. One, be sincere with yourself. Come to a place of acceptance that you're actually not okay. Then understand why you're not okay and figure out a plan towards coming out of it, right? Second is to have a few good people around you that you know that would help you through or just hold you down or hold your hands or even sit down with you, in the mud. It's always amazing. It's always helpful. It is, I think it's one of the most beautiful things in life generally. So that's also a reminder that when you're on your 100, you should always also try to be there for people that are not at their 100. So that would say,
I think it's super important.
Very important. Very, very
important. You can't
important.
just be the one who's taking it. You should also be able to give because your
People
friends
will go tired.
also expect that from you. Yeah.
Definitely. So make sure that loop, is always in play. And then the third is to also make sure that you are, what's the word now? You have an understanding of who you are and what you want out of life and why you want it, why you want those things, right? With those 3 clarities, then it's easier to pretty much navigate everything else. Once you have an understanding of who you are, you have the sincerity of owning whatever stage it is that you're in, it's easier to punch into the next stage. And the third is to have people to hold your hands per time.
Awesome. I think you've been able to distill it in such a way that anybody can just pick it up and they can replicate some of these things you've said here in their life. Thank you so much, Sonia, for joining me on Soulful Current. I think it's been an expose.
Pleasure.
It's been an expose with you. A lot of learning, a lot of things you've said. I really like what you said around building community. I think it's such an important thing. When they say a tree cannot make a forest, it can literally be diffused in like other facets of our life also, right? So you want to make sure you have people who are always going to be standing for you because you're not always going to be all right. You're not always going to be okay. So when you're not okay, there are people you can fall back on. Thank you so much for coming. And if you've listened to this podcast up until this end, we're coming to an end. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you're listening to the audio version, don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. I would really like to hear from you. What have you learned from this podcast? And
what you like to share?
yeah, anything you would like to share, I think is really going to be great. So I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for listening, and let's stay blessed.